Wonderful. Okay, so welcome everyone to the Q&A portion of our fall virtual tours. My name is Lizzie Gray and I'm a project coordinator for Connected Lane County. I am joined by three professionals. She'll be back in just a second, I promise there are three, from Oregon Pacific Bank, which is a local bank headquartered in Florence, Oregon. Welcome, all three of you. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
You bet. Lori, why don't you start?
Okay, hi, I'm Lori Gates. I am the Florence branch manager at Oregon Pacific Bank here in Florence.
Awesome. Can everybody hear Lori okay? Could you let me know in the chat if you can hear Lori? Give me a thumbs up. And sorry, Al, sorry to interrupt you. Go for it.
No, you're good.
Looks like yes, but quietly.
We're going to move it closer here.
Okay. Love the adaptability. Thank you.
Is that better? Can you hear me better?
Yep, that sounds better to me.
Okay, great. Okay.
All right, Al, sorry.
Hi guys, my name is Al. I am the operations supervisor here in Florence, Oregon for Oregon Pacific Bank.
Great. Okay. And Ron.
And good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ron Green. I am the president and chief executive officer of Oregon Pacific Bank, and I live in Florence.
Very cool. Before we start, I just want to remind everyone that by now you should have watched the 50-minute tour video. It was a little bit longer than we were anticipating, but a 50-minute tour video of OPB. My coworker Olivia would have sent that on Friday and again on Monday. So if you have not watched it, please make sure that you do so after the Q&A portion. And as always, while we're up here chatting, we can't see or hear you, but we encourage you to type in any questions that come up for you in the chat box. And I will be monitoring that chat. So I will be sure to ask any questions that you type in there. So I'll get us started. And I think I'll start, Ron, let's start with you. What was the path that you took to land this career? And what types of jobs did you have before banking?
Well, maybe sheer luck or maybe an accident by chance. As I explained to some of the folks before, I actually went to college to study music. And I had the desire to be both an educator and a professional musician, and shortly became both of those things, but realized that I needed an opportunity for a better career. And so after school, I decided to apply for a bank training position in Portland. And that was 31 years ago. Even though I studied music in college, I did go back after I joined the banking industry and got a finance master's from the University of Washington, and then spent about 3 years studying accounting. But that's, I kind of by mistake, many bankers that I know, especially in the management or senior management level, did not plan on becoming a banker. Jobs before that, I was mentioned before, a musician. I was a teacher, private teacher, group instructor of jazz studies. And, I think when I was a teenager, I worked at a pizza restaurant, just to get my feet in the door and get started. So that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Thanks, Ron. Lori, you mentioned in the video that you have been at OPB for 40 years.
Well, not quite. Yes,
almost.
I started 40 years ago.
Okay.
And then I took some time off with my children.
Okay.
I started here in May of 1980.
Okay. Wow. So was that your first job?
Yes, actually, after I went to a business college, yes, it was my first job.
Very cool.
It has been an adventure. I mean, I've done quite a few things. Nothing on the lending side, but in the operations side, it's been a wonderful career.
Awesome. Thanks, Lori. What about you, Al?
Hello. Well, I have been in the management field for over 20 years now. I went to college to get a degree on international management, but then things changed. And 7 years ago, I moved to Florence, and I ended up at OPB. And ever since, I started as a teller and moved up since, and I think it was a great move.
Great.
I love this company.
So if I heard you correctly, you said you moved to Florence 7 years ago and started as a teller at OPB and have since worked your way up?
Yep.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So I guess I'll start with Lori for this question since your start date might be the earliest. What keeps you at OPB?
Oh, it's a great company to work for. The culture, the sense of belonging. And I always felt that if an employer takes care of the employee will take care of the employer.
Yeah.
And I love my job. I love working with the clients in the community. I'm a people person, and so that has kept me here. Yeah, for the longest time, I was a teller for quite a few years, and then after I had children, I had, as a part-time teller, and I thought I would always be a teller. I loved it. I loved helping the clients come in. I had certain people come in on Friday nights, and I knew who they were, and just building that rapport with them and getting to know them has been a great adventure. And then I got to where, my children were older and I wanted to learn something different. Mm-hmm. So, the bank has always been there for me and helped me in my career. So
that's great that you were able to move up within the same organization. Yeah. Great. What about you, Al? What keeps you at OPB?
Well, at first, like I said, I was brand new to Florence, and at the time, it was pretty much that was the only thing for me in Florence. And like I said, I started as a teller, and I realized really quick that it wasn't just a job; it was a culture. We are a huge part of the community, and I like that, dealing with the customers on a daily basis, and not only here at work, but everywhere in town. It's such a small town that we run into our clients everywhere. So we constantly represent the bank. I don't care if I'm wearing shorts and a t-shirt, people still know and they come to me and ask questions, and that's what I like. It's a probably 24/7 job, and it's fun. I like it. Yeah.
Nice. Thank you. Ron, what about you?
Well, what keeps me at OPB is Al and Lori. My job, I can probably narrow it down to a couple of sentences, but one of the things that I'm really responsible to do is to hire and keep extraordinary individuals. And the two of them are some of the best that we have. And so it's the relationships that we have with the people, and the skills and the camaraderie, and the compassion and the love for each other as well. So, but I would say right now it's Al and Lori, absolutely.
Thank you.
Very nice. So it sounds like you are in charge of hiring excellent people. I don't know how many interviews you sit in on in your day-to-day work, but I guess my question would be to you, what stands out in an interview? What sets a candidate apart from the rest?
Well, I mean, to address your initial question, we have roughly 130 employees, and I only have, of those 137, directly report to me. Mm-hmm. So the positions that I would interview or be involved in would be generally those 7 positions. Lori, who is an extraordinary manager, if she hires someone, she interviews that person. Mm-hmm. We have a set guideline and a culture of how we interview. But my perspective, what sets people apart, honestly, is you can tell if someone's genuine. If you look at someone in the eye, or if they're unwilling to look at you in the eye when they're communicating, and just the sense of how they carry themselves but as a genuineness about themselves is super important. Much of any job that somebody applies for, you can teach them the job, but you can't teach being genuine. You can't teach character. You can't, teach someone's really desire to do the right thing at all times. So that's really what we look for. Yes, if they come in with a predetermined specific technical skill set, I mean, all the better. Yeah. But especially on entry-level positions, the job can be taught. Those other factors that I mentioned cannot.
Lori, do you have anything to add to that, since you do sit in on so many interviews? Spot on, Ron. That's what we look for too. Al and I, depending on if we're hiring someone in the teller area or operational area here, we do joint interviews. And that's what we always look at, those things. Always. Like Ron said, skills can be taught. And if they come in with set skills, good for us, better for us. But yeah, we look at those all the time. Anything else, Ann?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things we look for when we're doing interviews is if the person's gonna represent the bank
Mhm.
good, not just a good teller, not just a good assistant supervisor, but is that person gonna be a good representation to every one of us, not just the bank? Uh, and that's a lot of times that's a lot harder to find than somebody that, like Ron said, and you cannot study for that. You may have a few degrees, but if you don't have the personality, it's probably not going to fly for us. Yeah, it's a big factor.
So I have a question actually, because my mom recently has been participating in some interviewing, and she mentioned that somebody showed up for an interview in jeans. And so in your guys' field, in your all's field, if I was a student fresh out of high school and I wanted to interview for a teller position, what would I wear? What's appropriate to wear? And assuming that I don't own, a business suit because I'm fresh out of high school.
So nice
Well, I'll
slacks.
start.
Oh, go ahead,
You know,
Ron, sorry.
I'll start, but I want to, Lori and Al to chime in as well. Even though, especially in this environment that we're in today, and I'm at home today, Al and Lori are in the office, and I'm wearing a sweater, and you can't see my lower half, but I'm wearing jeans. In the environment of COVID, things are a little different, but we can't forget that we offer financial services to businesses and consumers who look to their bank as being trustworthy, professional, and that they know what they're doing. And so how you carry yourself and how you dress in that environment is very, very important. Certainly I get it that somebody, if either in high school or at a high school or at a college, may not have the resources to put together a suit, but I would say look for the best professional attire you can have. Jeans would not be appropriate. But I would say nice, in the case of a young man, pressed cotton Dockers, a shirt and a tie would be awesome. And then something similar, obviously, for a female. But professionalism and how you look and how you carry yourself is important. And I can tell you in my career, I've conducted interviews and I was just so shocked and then disappointed of how they chose to dress. And automatically, in my mind, that person was ruled out as a potential candidate because of that first impression that was made.
Yeah. What about just overall, aside from wardrobe? What would you expect to see if I was to come in for an interview?
Well, Lori and Al, jump in there.
Go ahead, Al,
I think one thing I look at when we're doing interviews, how clean they are. I mean, they might be wearing super expensive suit, but it's all wrinkled and the shoes are all muddy, and that tells a lot to me. The person is obviously not used to wear that kind of attire, and he's not responsible enough or clean enough, kind of thing. So that tells me a lot about a person. If he's gonna wear a pair of jeans and they're not appropriate for an interview, he kind of, you're right, like Ron says, it puts them on a little lower level than somebody else. Yeah.
Yeah.
But appearance-wise, their hair is neatly combed. I mean, they're clean.
Hey now.
Yeah.
Okay, neatly shaved and combed or combed. Clean.
Yeah.
Presentable, I guess you'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Presentable. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Great way to
I
put
was
it.
going to add something into. We interviewed a couple of years ago, and someone came in like slipper boots. We just couldn't believe it. But
Yeah. Yep.
anyway,
If I didn't own high heels, would a pair of flats be okay?
yes.
Great.
No, I mean, no tennis shoes, and like Birkenstocks, I would say no.
No sandals. Yeah.
Yeah, but flats, small heels,
Yeah.
boots, depending, I mean, more of a dress boot than a casual
Like-
cowboy boot.
Mm-hmm.
I should say. Could be a nice cowboy boot though.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But you know what I mean.
I do. So could students job shadow at OPB? And if they wanted to, I think I remember you mentioning in the video that they could. Could you describe some of the jobs that a student might be able to see in a 3-hour job shadow?
Ron, you want to start over there, and then I can start over here.
Well, certainly. there are very different facets of what jobs opportunities exist in banking, from what Lori and Al do, which is direct interaction with our clients, the community, the banking transactions, but there's a whole myriad of departments in the back room: information technology, IT, accounting, marketing, operational support. These are process jobs that really help in the back room, in the invisible part of the bank, the client experience go well. So yes, they could sit and mirror, given a job shadow where there's only a couple of hours, it might be limited to a job where there's not really the risk of confidentiality being breached. Our most important thing in our industry is to protect customers' information. But I'd say on the backside of the room, marketing, finance, human resources to a degree, those are all things that people could get a kind of snapshot view as to what goes on, other than just banking, which is what Al and Lori do.
Right.
Yeah.
And out front here, we're the kind of like the frontline staff. So we interact more with the clients face to face than the back office does. And so there's the, tellering, there's our new accounts department, account servicing. We have a merchant service, cash management department. There is, and there's also loans, lenders here, residential, consumer, commercial loans.
So a whole bunch of jobs that
There is a lot
to learn about.
A lot.
What do you think are some high school classes, whether they be core classes like math and science, or more technical classes like a business class or a marketing class? What could students be doing right now to better prepare for a job in banking?
Honestly, all those you just mentioned are great. But personally, I would say speech class. Because oftentimes what we see are people that come in, and then because of maybe they're shy or they're not used to communicating, not used to making eye contact with someone. And regardless of whether you're in a client-facing position at the bank or back room, you have to be able to engage socially, personally, to be effective. Yeah. And so, speech and anything that gets someone out, kind of socially, which today in this environment of COVID, it's difficult, but we are interacting and communicating. Certainly, business, finance, it is really, I take my knowledge of the industry for granted. And when I hear people talk about banking and finance, I'm reminded of how little people know about it. And so banking, finance, overall economics and economy would be helpful. But our comments earlier about we can teach you the job in most positions, but you need to be able to come to the interview and to the job with, okay, but I've got a personality and I can communicate with you and I can look you in the eye and I can be honest and sincere. So that's my thought.
Right behind Ron, totally agree. Number one, I think with speech.
Yeah.
It can be a hard thing to do. I mean, some people have anxiety, and then you can prepare as much as you can and you like, and then when you're up front there, I mean, it's hit me before, but yeah, it's very, very important.
Yeah, probably especially too after a school year like the one that we've had and that we've started. Is human interaction is we're so lacking in it right now.
Oh.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm picturing like a speech and debate club, which I think some schools have. I don't know if they all have them. I would say even sports, because you're communicating with teammates and with coaches. I'm trying to picture.
Plus working with the team too. I mean, most of us here have a team that we work with. Some of the back office jobs, they might be working, alone quite a bit, but they still have a team that they're working with. So very good.
I think another class that might help, in my opinion, will be acting. Acting classes. Because that brings up it makes them come out of their shell, come out of speak in public, perform in public kind of thing,
Absolutely.
I think Al makes a great point.
You're right.
I in my personality, maybe it's difficult for Al and Lori and Lizzie to believe this, is introverted. And over the last 34 years, true. I've learned to act, learn to go out in the community and shake hands. I don't think it's what I want to do or what I'm most comfortable doing, but I've learned to almost become someone else. And I think that's a great idea. Drama class, learning to put on that facade and be a character. Not to say that you're going to be disingenuous. We talked about earlier when you're in the professional environment, but it might help you get past the hump of that nervousness and anxiety.
Absolutely, and some tools to fall back on when you do find yourself.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great suggestion that I've never even heard, Al.
Al.
I know. I consider myself quite the extrovert, but my partner suggested that we take an improv class together. And I looked at him and I was like, no way. But I do think it's important to challenge yourself and to try new things, because you don't grow until you're a little bit uncomfortable. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so I kind of I have a little game. I'm thinking of 3 professional skills in my head. I am going to actually a little bit of background. Each Wednesday after these Tour Tuesdays, we follow up on Wednesday with a working webinar. And we've looked at the new world of work, top 10 employability skills. And they're recognized by education, by post-secondary education, by industry, as some of the most important skills for people to have as they enter the workforce. And I'm thinking of 3 of them in my head, and I'll give one of them to each of you. And could you tell me about a time when you used that professional skill in your job? And I'll give you a little bit of time to think. But Al, let's go with collaboration. So working together. Ron, solution mindset, problem solving. And Lori, how about you do adaptability, AKA flexibility? So I'll give you just a little bit of time. And while you're thinking, I'm going to encourage students to chime in with their own questions. You've been relatively quiet today, so I'm concerned the chat box isn't working.
I see some questions on the chat box.
I did too. Thanks, Al.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I'll follow up with those questions as soon as our panelists have just a few minutes to think. Okay. Whenever someone's ready, go ahead and give me a thumbs up, and we'll start with you.
Oh, I'm always ready.
Oh, all right.
I'm ready too.
Do it.
Well, solution mindset. There's an expression that's been around the world for a long time, honestly, that I don't like, but there's times people have referred to themselves as the smartest person in the room. When people carry a sense of, I know more than you, I've done more than you, I don't even need your opinion, I can take care of it. And honestly, the smartest person in the room is the person that recognizes that they are not the smartest person in the room. When you're solving a problem, and I can tell you my experience would be, and I'm not going to give you an example, but just what I think, which is every day, is to recognize that I cannot do it on my own. I need the input and the viewpoint and the perspective of everyone on my team. And actually, I had an example of that this morning with the executive committee that I meet with. I throw out, what do you think, John? What do you think, Amber? What do you think, Bob? Because they have a viewpoint that will be different than mine. And then collectively, the collaborative voice, the collaborative outcome will be the better solution than I could have come up with on my own. So you're the smartest person in the room if you recognize that you are not the smartest person in the room.
Yeah, that's great. When we had, we've done the solution mindset webinar, and when we took a deep dive, the professionals who joined me in that, on that panel, talked so much about active listening. And so much of problem solving is truly understanding what the problem is, and you cannot do that unless you are actively listening. So that's great. Thank you. Lori, I saw you jump up and down. You're ready. I know it.
Adaptability, flexibility. So, well, the world as well as banking is constantly changing. And in order to be successful, you have to adapt to the changes. Sometimes it's really hard, but you need to be. You need to be flexible, adapt to the changes, learn what these changes are, how they will maybe impact good and bad. In dealing with clients, you have to adapt to each of one of their personalities. They're all so different. And so you cannot, sometimes your communication with one client will not be the same with another client because of their personality or their ways, etc. So you have to adapt to that. So listen, when you say listening, that is the key word. Listen. Don't interrupt. Listen. Take notes. and adapt to the situation, the client at the time. You have to be flexible because, every day you come in here, I make a list of to-dos, whatever. You come in here and it's true, Al, huh? There is never a day that you can go by that list. You try,
Yeah.
but you have to be flexible because things change continually.
Absolutely.
And I go with the flow.
Great.
I work and I adapt to it. I've been here a long time, so starting 40 years ago, things in banking have changed so much. And that old adage, it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks, but you have to. You have to be that old dog that learns new tricks.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, then you're going to be behind and you're going to be unhappy, unsuccessful.
Yeah. You can be an old dog, but don't be an old stubborn dog.
There you go.
I think that's the thing. What about you, Al?
I would say for collaboration, I think not only with this bank, but in any other job, you have to work, like Ron said, you have to work with everyone else. We wouldn't be able to do our job with just tellers. We wouldn't be able to do our jobs with just back of the house or lending or mortgages or anything. We all work together. So it's a huge collaboration when it comes to our bank. And also with community, we work together with the community big time. We're constantly collaborating with them, doing fundraisers or helping others or something. It's a huge collaboration that it never stops, and it's always something different. So that's something that we must do to stay afloat.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you all. You aced the game. Okay. So it looks like we have been flooded with student questions.
I see
My
that.
favorite part. Okay. So a question from Miss Olivia. How has the industry changed since so many things are virtual now?
Well, I can start on a lot of aspects and ask Lori and Al to chime in as well. You think about the idea that banking started with literally cash and gold. A bank would hold tangible something, cash or gold, and then you'd come back and get it later. And I see there was a question later in there too, asking how much cash the banks have on hand. It's very little, honestly, because we're not in the cash business as far as per se of holding the cash. But technology and virtual aspect of how money moves electronically, money doesn't exchange hands in the form of a tangible asset like cash or gold or whatever it was, or trading a horse. But it's all virtually done through electronic movement nowadays. And of course, I know there's some technology questions in there as well. Nowadays, most banking is done online, whether it be through your Apple device, which you can't see because of my background. Sorry, that's odd. Or your computer. You can do pretty much everything on your mobile phone that you did in the bank 3 years ago. Just about everything, other than you can't see Al and Lori, which is, a crying shame. But it's hard to explain because everything has changed. Everything about interviewing people. We're interviewing people with Zoom. We're doing things like that. It's the technology and the ability to kind of bridge geographies with technology and systems with technology to make things faster, more secure, and certainly more convenient for everybody.
Yeah, that actually segues really nicely into the next question that Olivia had, and that she asks about how the roles in banking have changed since more people are using online banking. I'm sure pre-online banking, there wasn't even, a department or a staff who supported clients with their online platforms. Does that exist now?
Quite help.
Okay. When it comes to our branch, our own personal branch here in Florence, we're a little different than everybody else. Our demographic clientele, we still do a lot of in-person one-on-one, and that's what they love. They like to come in and talk to one of our tellers and do their transactions live. But for coming from a big city, I can tell you, like Ron said, everything is done via mobile. That's a huge part nowadays, and we're moving with the times, but at the same time, we're customizing our services here in Florence for our Florence people.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons why it separates us from other banks.
It's as if you've seen the next question. What sets you apart as a local bank versus one of the giant national banks? And I love this question because I'm somebody who loves to bank with smaller local banks. I see the benefits as a customer, but what do you all think some of the benefits are?
Well, from the money point of view, our money stays in town. It benefits everybody in our community. It's not benefiting somebody in Washington or California per se, but our investment money stays in the community to help our community. And when it comes to our branch locally, like I said, our clients love coming in, and there's still a huge number of people who prefer dealing with a live person than calling and pressing number one and number one, number one.
Yes.
So I think that's a huge factor for us, a huge advantage.
Yeah.
We do keep up with the times with electronic banking. I mean, Ron has been awesome making sure that we're up to speed with the larger banks. So we can do the things that they can do, but we still offer that personal service.
Yeah. Yes, which I would say absolutely.
I have only worked for Oregon Pacific Bank, so I have not worked at another bank. Al hasn't either. I mean, he was in
Flooring industry, yeah.
Yeah, flooring industry. Ron, you have worked for a larger bank, right?
I have, yeah. I would say there are a lot of different things that would say why working with a small bank, local bank is important, but one of which is decision making. And this seems to be most impactful for some of our business clients. But if they're borrowing a large amount of money, or perhaps their loan transaction is interesting and really requires some thought on the bank employee to kind of decipher it, it's easy when the person making that decision of yes or no is literally sitting right next door to them.
Right.
And again, national banks, regional banks are fine institutions, but because of how they are siloed and they operate, oftentimes if you want to finance a commercial real estate building in downtown Eugene and I'm not going to mention any other bank's names, but you're a bank A who's headquartered in California, then they have to send that decision to someone in California. Again, the nature of virtual existence and how we transmit data, it's instantaneous, but you've got someone who doesn't know the Eugene market, who doesn't live in Eugene, thinking that this is or isn't a good idea for the bank to be involved. And I think just having local presence, local management, and local decision-making is a big deal.
Yep. Those are all great points. Thank you. From a student in Cottage Grove, how are all monetary transactions documented?
Well, I can say again through a computer database.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, the olden days, and Lori can recall this, but of literally somebody coming in and us manually marking into their passbook the debit or the withdrawal in pencil or pen.
Counting the money by hand too.
Counting the money by hand. Technology can go ahead. Sorry, Lizzie.
Each client had do you call it a passbook?
They used to call it passbook savings. It was literally a book that you would insert into either a manual with the pen or pencil, but it migrated into using a printer to update the transaction, to manual ledgers of the bank CFO, keeping track of dollars in and dollars out. I mean, the financial industry has migrated quite well into obviously computers and a database system to manage data, to eliminate human error, and to manage security. So it's all electronic. Again, we've been saying for 30 years that we'll all be going out of the cash soon. We'll be in a cashless society anytime now, and it hasn't happened yet. But I still think that is on its way, and I don't think the cash and coin currency is important in banking any longer because of how money moves electronically and how we keep track of it electronically. There's a digital footprint, a digital thumbprint on every transaction, so we know what Lori did, what Al did, because it's all in the database.
Yeah. Absolutely. That does just feel more secure to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Very much so.
And this question can be for anyone, but what are some of the challenges you've faced in your role at Oregon Pacific Bank?
I think the challenges, wow. I started as a teller, and I've done some different things throughout my career here. Each new job was a challenge, but I adapted.
Mhm.
But I think maybe the challenge, a challenge was how to tell somebody no
Yes,
in a positive way.
I bet.
I mean, that was a challenge. I always wanted to please people. Okay, Ron has taught me a tremendous amount of education here. So, but telling a challenge was to tell someone no in a positive way. But I've overcome that. I
Mhm.
mean, I understand now, and so it's helped a lot. Other challenges. I think here.
I have a challenge.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest challenge for me right now is that we've been hiring a lot, and
Mhm.
we hire really good quality people.
Yeah.
You hire what? I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Really good quality people,
Okay.
or great people,
Mhm.
which is good for me. But other departments in our company, they start looking at them and like, hey, so and so is great, and we have them, and I'm happy for them because they're moving up.
Yes.
But that's a challenge for me.
Yeah.
But it's a good challenge. It's a good challenge
Yeah.
to have. I don't mind at all.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
That's interesting to think about because yeah, there's another hole for you to fill, but then that person
Exactly.
needs to stay within the company so you keep
Yeah.
talent.
So we kind of feel sometimes it feels like we're the bottom of the food chain. I mean, we're not, but as we are growing, um, other job openings are opening up,
Yeah.
or they're adding on a position, and so
Mhm.
the people that come to work here do want to grow with the bank.
Yeah.
And so you're right. That's a good one. It is a challenge.
Yeah.
So, but we also want to hire good people.
Yeah.
That's what we hopefully we've been doing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it tells me that we've been doing a good job hiring.
Right.
Because
I was going to say the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're
Absolutely.
kind of limited here. I mean, our town is not that big,
Mhm.
and I don't think people want to commute from Eugene or Coos Bay, whatever it may be, to Florence. I mean, we do have a couple employees from Reedsport.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. In Mapleton area, but not further away than 30 miles or so that actually work here in Florence.
So here's another question. What kind of technology do you use for communication? And Ron, you mentioned Zoom interviews.
Yeah.
Any other platforms that feel secure?
Well, we are fully immersed in the world of Microsoft, and Microsoft has a cloud-based system called Office 365. All of you as students and adults who have used Microsoft Word or Excel or Outlook for email or PowerPoint, all that's now in the cloud, and which again allows for a lot of mobility, access remotely, security. And then internally, we have a new application of Microsoft called Teams. And Teams is where we do a lot of internal chatting, collaborating on documents and projects, also video conferencing amongst ourselves. It operates just like Zoom, but also video conferencing with people on the outside. So it's our Zoom. But it's a fantastic system, easily adaptable because most people have used some type of Microsoft service in their even in their student career, if not their professional career, and it's easily adaptable and very intuitive. And I like the security and I like the mobility of it.
Great. Great. How do people like to give and receive feedback about the work they're doing?
I think if it's done correctly,
Mhm.
it's well accepted. I mean, on our position, we get feedback from our clients, and they're not shy at all. Ron can tell you that. They will tell us, what we're doing wrong. A lot of times, they tell us what we're doing wrong, and not enough of what we're doing right. But I guess if they don't tell us, that's a good thing. I mean, if we don't hear that, it's a good thing. But we do like hearing feedback because that way it gives us the opportunity to fix what we're doing wrong and grow. So if we're doing something that is not practical for somebody, we wanna fix it and make it better. Yeah.
Use it as an educational tool to make us better.
To learn, yeah. What about internally? Do you have a type of review system set up with
Yeah, we certainly would want to provide annual reviews the performance of an employee certainly is on them to deliver, but it's more importantly on us or the supervisor to say, here are my expectations. And so it's very important that we give them something to measure their success to and then report on how they're doing. And so you bet, constant communication, the annual review process is great, but sometimes it feels rather sterile. It's like, well, Al's doing great on this. Al could work better on that. Al's doing this. And it shouldn't be anything they haven't heard before. But I think what's more valuable is that constant communication that say, and I'm picking on Al, but that Al and Lori may have on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. The idea of being constructive, if you're a supervisor or if you're an employee and you work for someone, that supervisor should never, ever provide you any constructive criticism publicly. If they have a challenge with what you're doing, demand, if they're not doing this already automatically, is that you meet privately, because you don't want your peers to see you being adjusted, if you will, or corrected in how your performance. On the reverse side, if Al is doing a great job, I want Lori to be telling the world publicly in front of all of them how good Al is.
Yeah.
Al feels better about that. And so I think, again, we've talked in our video before about the culture of kindness and the culture, I don't mind, even I'm not embarrassed to say, of love. Be kind to your fellow workers. You can communicate what your challenges are, but just be kind. I also like to say that it's, as an employee, it's good to have an open mind, because things will be changing, but at the same time, you should be willing to have an open mouth, meaning we want to hear from you too.
That's right.
Don't be afraid that my boss is unapproachable. I can't say to him or her what my thoughts are. Be kind, be respectful, and then say, gee, Lori, can you help me understand why we're doing this? Or could you explain this to me? I don't understand, or I don't agree. Let's talk about it. Lori may make the decision and need to do it anyway, and she'll explain to you why, but have an open mind and have an open mouth.
I like that.
So true, Al. So true, Ron. Excuse me. I will tell someone, if they come to me, I will ask them, what would you do? Tell me what you would do. Like Al would come to me and say, Lori, what do you think about this? Well, what would you do, Al? And I want to know what his thought process is. And then if it's not what, is our procedures here at the bank, then we'll talk about it and have them understand why we wouldn't do it or why we would do it. So, yeah.
Yeah. I wonder too if that's ever a good self-reflection exercise, because if someone's coming to you saying, why do we do it this way? And you can't explain it, or there's not an explanation that makes sense, then maybe there is a little hiccup in the system.
Yeah, I think that there's been an expression, probably in every industry has had this, where people have said, well, we've always done it that way. And that's the wrong answer. Because no, we don't want to change things just to make change, but we should not be afraid that the change generally is good. Mm-hmm. Generally, change is reflective of changing times, changing perspectives, changing viewpoints, and efficiency, taking advantage of what's in technology. Yeah, we have not always done it that way. Let's consider a new and better way.
Yeah, yep, absolutely. I'm going to aim this next question at Al. Al, do you let your tellers use their cell phones at work?
No.
No.
No, for a couple of different reasons. One, we want them to have the ability to give their attention to our clients.
Mm-hmm.
All the way from the minute somebody walks through the door, I don't want somebody looking down when somebody's sitting up front waiting to be helped. So that's one, but I think the main reason is for security purposes. We don't want anybody using their phones, and not like they're going to do it, but I don't want somebody taking a picture of private information that is definitely a big no-no. So yeah, no, we prefer no cell phones. They can use them on the break areas when they go to break or lunch.
Yeah, that makes sense. The security piece makes a ton of sense. You think you're just taking a harmless selfie, but little do you know, you've got client information on the screen behind you.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Another question here about tattoos and piercings. So I think that kind of goes back to hiring and just overall appearance. If I was to show up to a job interview with tattoos on my hands and this nose ring in my nose, would that be a problem?
It would not be a problem. Our policy has really evolved over the years. I mean, starting as a bank 40 years ago in a rural community, we are a bank, And, you know, a tattooed face, although it's someone's choice, you're going to be, which is harsh as it is, you're going to be judged by the clients that you serve. And so, but we have employees with tattoos on their arms, on their hands that are not offensive.
Mhm.
You know, I think a single piercing, whether it be in an ear or a nose,
Mhm.
you know, but it also, if it's offensive in any way, the supervisor will make that call. But generally speaking, things have changed. Times have changed, and our perspective of what is considered acceptable also needs to evolve.
Right.
So there's no set policy that says if this then that, if this then that. So we have some broad guidance on that, but we'd like to, you know, be mindful that most of the people that we're hiring today, I mean, Lizzie, you're an example. You're dressed professionally. You look all the things that Al talked about earlier about hygiene and hair, and you look professional and 100% presentable. Whether you have a nose ring or not is really irrelevant.
Yeah, I'm honestly surprised to hear you say that would be okay. That's changed. I was a teller back a while ago, and I had to take my nose ring out. And I would say too that your policy does not span across all banks, but that's great to hear that you're paying attention to who you're hiring, who they are, and evolving with them.
Well, I think the idea, again, on the idea of the nose ring, you know, if it was what you're wearing or if it was this giant loop that stuck way out here, that's where I think the supervisor is going to have to make some discretionary call, because I don't think the policy says that nose rings are acceptable or that they're banned.
Mhm.
It's essentially what is viewed and deemed as professional.
Yeah.
And again, you are 100% presentable, Lizzie. So.
Thank you so much. It's the nicest thing anyone said to me all day. What are some skills that new employees can do to stay in a job long term, especially she has a correction in there, it says can build, especially if it is their first or second job. So basically, what can an employee do to stay long term? What can they show you?
I think, can I jump on
Sure,
that?
Al, yeah, you
I
got
think we see that often being having tellers. A lot of them are younger and they haven't had a real job per se. Uh, but I think one of the things that they can do to stay longer, they need to be willing to learn. They need to be willing to listen and take criticism. Uh, like Ron said, you know, we're gonna come to you and tell you, hey, you know, you're doing really good, but there's more room to grow. And if they're not willing to accept that, or they think they're already, like, you know, a gift from God, it's just not going to work. You know, so they need to be willing to listen and grow and change, go with the change.
and take the initiative.
Yeah,
Too.
we hear that.
Fast. Yeah.
What is that, Lori? What does that look like?
What do you mean?
If someone's taking initiative, does that mean they're knocking on your door saying, give me more work to do? What does
That's
that
one
look
of the
like?
things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or what kind of classes? You know, we have an internal, you know, compliance banking university here that
Mhm.
we are assigned classes annually through our HR department, executive team department, on compliance issues, products, customer service, etc. There's so many classes that are out there. So take the initiative. What other kind of classes can I take to help me, you know, grow?
Yeah.
And then the supervisor would look and see and maybe assign some to them. But take that initiative. Be that team player. Open communication with your supervisor, manager. Learn, listen, learn.
Anything to add, Ron?
Well, I think the answers that Al and Lori gave were just spectacular and spot on. I think above and beyond doing, there is oftentimes the job description, what Al or Lori may ask you to do. But if you choose to take it a step further and make the situation better, you improve it, you make things efficient. Again, that initiative that was talked about, just doing something above and beyond. Oftentimes there are people that just do the basic level. This is what you asked me to do, or this is what's expected. This is all I'm going to do.
Right.
That person is not going to advance. Then they're going to become frustrated, and then they're going to quit and find a better job. In their mind, is what's a better job. So make an effort. And I think the last thing I would say is do whatever you have to do to ensure your coworkers want to keep you around.
There you go. Yeah, you gotta be
And
you gotta be a good
if
team.
you're a pain,
Yeah.
if you're part of the problem as far as the culture of the team, then you need to fix that.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. It looks here like I might have missed a follow-up question to the internal review question. Ricardo would like to know if the review system is a point system. So what kinds of things are in that review? And I think he threw out an example of growing accounts.
It depends on the position. You know, someone who is responsible for servicing clients and providing access to services, we may set a goal of, we'd love for you to make so many loans or open so many accounts this year. Certainly other educational things we want to see them achieve during the review period. Present or in the past, our review process has not been quantifiable, score driven, but we're actually migrating to that here. As we grow, it becomes more and more difficult to be kind of soft and squishy on reviewing someone's performance when you have 130 employees. But it vary from position to position. But oftentimes it's for the employee's best interest if we can give them definable performance expectations, so they know what is expected of them, and then they can achieve that or better.
Yeah, absolutely.
So part of that review process, at the very end of their performance evaluation, we'll have objectives.
Yeah.
You know, for us, we'll talk about the things that they've accomplished this last year if we gave them some goals, and we'll talk about new ones that we have.
Yep, absolutely. Some goals. I like it.
And we review with each particular person their how much they have grown
Mm-hmm.
and what the expectations are. Like you've been here a year,
Mm-hmm.
you went from this to here, but there's much more room to grow into, and that varies big time from each one of them. Yep.
Got it. I believe I see the last question. I'm probably going to have to make this the last question of the interview. Thank you all for submitting all of the questions that have come through thus far. But the last question, of course, we're going to talk about COVID. How could we not? But due to COVID, can people come back into the bank, or do they have to set appointments? And has COVID caused any layoffs within your company?
Lori, why don't you take the first part of that?
Me? Did you say me? Sorry.
The first part, yeah.
So, no, we don't have client or employees come to the back, or even clients come to the back door or whatever. We have, our doors are open. You know, for the first couple months, our doors were closed, and we asked everyone to do alternative methods of banking, drive up, ATM, online banking, etc., night drop. Now that we are open, we have a minimum of 10 clients in the bank at once, and that we've hit that a couple times. We've had to kind of manage that. But a lot of people, since COVID hit, they learned the alternative methods of banking, and so a lot of them are still doing that.
That's a good point.
Great. They can set appointments, but no, we are open for business, and we have it's every other teller window, so we're all 6 feet apart, and then we have spacers on the floor of the lobby for them to wait for the next available client service representative. So
I bet that makes you happy to have clients in the bank.
it is.
I bet.
And we still, there's still some, like I said, they're still using those alternative methods, and I don't see them that often. So
I know.
it's really great to see.
Great. And then Ron, will we look to you for the second half?
Well, yes, today and to date, the answer is no. Banking is interesting in that it used to be an industry that was built on, we build a box, we have something at the box, and you come to the box to get it. Well, the box really being the building, the branch, that model is dramatically and exponentially changing. And so since there are other delivery channels of banking services, even as basic as the drive-through teller or the night depository, but now online banking, mobile deposit, we were able to kind of, all of our employees who served in need at the bank were continuing to do what they did even when we were closed. Now, I think there's going to be worldwide a challenge is how industry reacts to prolonged effects of a pandemic and what that means for, I'm not going to say us or banking, just in general into the economy. I think the future is unknown, but we've, knock on wood, to date, we've been very fortunate to not have to have any layoffs as a result of the pandemic.
That's amazing. That's really, really good to hear. So if you happen to be hiring a teller or two or any other entry-level positions, where could somebody find those job postings?
Well, at opbc.com, our website, and then if you go to the careers page, which I believe there's an easy access at the footer, but for anyone who's comfortable navigating around a website, you will find it, I promise you. The careers page, and it'll bring up all available positions. The way that the Bureau of Labor works now, if you're interested, you have to apply online. We can't accept a resume or an application across the desk any longer, but you can apply right there, and all of our positions that are open are posted right now.
And you have branches in Florence, in Eugene, where else? Do you have one in
Rose-
Pittsburgh?
Coos Bay, Roseburg, and Medford.
Oh my gosh, lots of options.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you to all three of you so much for your time this summer filming the tour, and then again today. It's been wonderful to have you.
Welcome. Thank you.
Go be a banker. It's an honorable profession. You will love it.
It is.
Awesome. Thank you everyone for participating, and we will see you next week for our tour of State Farm. And just a heads up, that is all in Spanish. So if you don't speak or understand Spanish, you might want to wait to tune in until the week after. But we'll see everybody there. Thank
Very
you.
good. Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.